The second episode of Game of Thrones Season 7 has aired. It was called Stormborn, and it was a packed episode. There was so much going on, it seemed. You know, I heard some people say that it felt like it could have been an episode much later in the series, given how much occurred. But yeah, lots to go over, lots to digest. So join me as we see if the second episode of Game of Thrones was any good. The episode kicked off with Daenerys and her crew up in Dragonstone, and there was a great scene between Daenerys and Varys where she basically says to him, like, look, how do I know I can trust you? You've worked for several kings, you've conspired behind their back, you've conspired to have me killed when in earlier seasons. I mean, how do I know I shouldn't have you on your head on the shop, you know? And she had a point, certainly, but I felt like Varys had a great explanation for his actions. In season 1, Ned Stark, when he's in prison, says to Varys, who do you really serve? And Varys says, the realm. And I think he really proved this was true in his conversation with Dany, because he says, you know, I know what it's like to be one of the small folk, to be a peasant. You know, when the great houses of Westeros go to war, it's us that really suffer. And that's true, and it seems like Varys just wants someone who is going to allow the small folk of Westeros to live in relative peace and to have a fighting chance. And it seems like, you know, if he sees that the person he's following isn't doing their job correctly, he's not just going to stand by and let it happen. And he explains that to Daenerys, and fair play to Dany, she says, you know, if there ever comes a time when you think I'm turning away from what's the greater good, then you tell me. Don't conspire behind my back, but if you do, I'll have you burnt. And they agreed to those terms, and I thought that was a very interesting scene, and I think it's something we might see similar scenes in future of, because the fact is that a lot of main characters now are beginning to converge, and that, you know, even characters we think of as being good guys still have reasons to dislike each other. I mean, Jon Snow and Davos headed to meet Daenerys. You've got to remember that during the Battle of the Blackwater, Tyrion's plan to use wildfire resulted in the death of Davos' sons. So I imagine they're going to have a similar conversation. Hopefully they'll be able to hash it out without bloodshed. But, you know, I thought that was a good scene, and it shows how complicated the politics of Westeros is and the playing of the Game of Thrones. And yeah, I love the way how Varys, you know, he didn't try and be sneaky or anything. He was just like, look, this is where my allegiance lies, cards on the table. And I feel like that was one of the few scenes where we've seen Varys be truly honest about his intentions and his ambition, because for much of the series of Game of Thrones we haven't really understood what Varys' endgame is. But it seems like we might have learnt that now. Unless, of course, this is just a double bluff, and really he wants to see Arya on the throne, and he's going to stab Daenerys in the back as soon as possible. But yeah, I thought that was a cracking scene, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some similar scenes in future between different characters. Then we cut to Davos, Sansa and Jon Snow up in Winterfell. Tyrion has sent a letter saying you should come meet Daenerys. Jon Snow, he trusts Tyrion. If you remember, they had some screen time together in season 1 where Tyrion says all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes, and they travel to the wall together. And Tyrion kind of gave Jon Snow some advice there and such. And yeah, they had kind of a friendship, if you like, a rare one between a technical Stark and a Lannister. And so Jon feels fairly confident it's not a trap, but you can understand why people like Sansa and Davos would think it's a trap. And I think as viewers we know that if Jon Snow goes to meet Daenerys, at the very least he'll get out alive. I don't think Tyrion or Dany or anyone wants to see him killed for any particular reason, so we know it's probably not that dangerous. But obviously, if you were Sansa, wouldn't you distrust any Lannisters, even Tyrion? So yeah, and it looks like Jon Snow is mighty tempted, and we see later on in the episode he does indeed decide to go down. Then we cut back to King's Landing in the throne room. Cersei has gathered all the remaining lords that are loyal to her, and is you know, giving the speech saying, Daenerys is here, we need to stop her, she's going to unleash the Dothraki on us, you know. And really nice attention to detail there, I thought, was we've seen in past seasons when people like Joffrey have been on the throne and all the lords have been gathered round, and the huge hall where the throne is kept is just packed full of people. Did you notice in this one how few people were there to see Cersei? You know, you could really tell that she's running out of allies quickly. And, you know, you had some lords like Randall Tarly who showed up, but obviously Highgarden is against the Lannisters now, Dorne is against the Lannisters, the North obviously is against the Lannisters. You know, there's so few people that they can count on now. And, you know, Cersei was trying to give this big speech, but she was giving it to a pretty small audience. We then see Jaime try to convince Randall Tarly, who is, of course, Sam Tarly's father, to, you know, pledge his allegiance to the Lannisters and be his commander in the battles to come. And Randall, he seems like a massive dick to his son, and he is, but he does also seem like a good commander who knows his business. And Jaime says, you know, I'll need someone like you to help me command the armies, and when the war's won, you'll be the new Warden of the South, which is a pretty big deal. You know, Ned Stark was Warden of the North, Tywin Lannister was Warden of the South, and Jaime is going to give this title to Randall Tarly. And that seems to persuade him. So it seems like the Lannisters have at least one strong ally now to rely on. Then we cut to the Citadel, where Sam and Grand Maester are examining Jorah Mormont's grayscale infection. And this is really the first time we've seen the extent of it. He takes his shirt off, and you can just see it is covered from sort of up his arm and then across half his torso. And I thought the prosthetics and the makeup of that looked really good. It really like scaling. It looked like if you sort of stretched your arm out too much, it would kind of tear the flesh and really hurt. You know, if you've ever had any kind of wound, or you know, if you've had stitches or something, you'll know that it really limits your ability to move wherever the infected area is. And I thought that was great. The way the actor was moving with it, you know, it was showing, it was slowing him down. He wasn't able to move in the same way he used to be able to. You could tell this thing is really physically affecting him now. You know, he seemed stiff on that side, and obviously grayscale, it essentially turns you to stone almost. So you could definitely appreciate that would be a serious disease to have, and I thought they did a great job of conveying that. Then we go back to King's Landing, where Qyburn, who, did you notice, is wearing a Hand of the Queen kingpin now, so presumably he's the new hand now. He takes Cersei down to the depths below King's Landing, where the skulls of the Targaryen dragons are kept, and we get to see the skull of Balerion the Dread, who in Game of Thrones was the largest dragon to have ever existed. And I've got to say, in the books, the images that we've seen based on the book content, Balerion is even bigger than the skull we see in the show. However, in the show, he's still pretty big. I'd say slightly bigger than Drogon, which is Dany's largest dragon. So, you know, still a big size, but not quite as big as the dragon of the books. We then see Qyburn show Cersei a ballista he's had made, which fires a huge spear. And as I said in my last video, you know, we saw in the pits that dragons can be wounded by arrows and spears. And honestly, a direct hit with a ballista, or through the skull like we saw on Balerion's, would definitely incapacitate one of Dany's dragons and quite possibly kill it. You know, I don't think these dragons are immortal by any means. They can be hurt. They're not like Smaug from Lord of the Rings, where they just have one vulnerable area. You know, a few too many arrows to the chest, one direct hit from a ballista could definitely kill one of Dany's dragons. And again, I think we're going to see that. I predict we're going to see a dragon die in the season, and you know, I think that will be a major blow for Dany to realise her dragons aren't as powerful as she realises. Then we cut back to Dragonstone, where Daenerys is meeting with Yara, Theon, Elaria Sand and Olenna Tyrell. Now, is it just me, or if I was Daenerys, there's no way I would trust Elaria Sand, okay? I appreciate that Dany wants all the support she can, and having the support of Dawn, which famously was never conquered by the Targaryens with their dragons. She wants that support, so I guess this is why she's putting up with Ilaria. But I think Ilaria is a really bad character. You know, her moral compass is all over the place. She loved Oberyn Martell, who said time and time again that children aren't responsible for the sins of their parents. And then she goes in a quest for vengeance after Oberyn's killed by killing Myrcella, who really is one of the most innocent Lannisters there is. You know, she really had... The only reason she killed her was to get at Cersei. And I'm surprised that Dany is so accepting of that. I would like to have seen Dany have some harsh words for her. Maybe she's just using her and she was biding her time and she would have given some consequence to Ilaria. I like that Tyrion said to Ilaria she was an innocent girl, but I don't think he went far enough. I think Tyrion should have been more pissed that his niece was murdered for no reason by Ilaria, and now he's having to work with her. Again, that refers back to this idea of characters having to meet each other and work together when they might have beef. You know, and I can understand why some characters might go, look, we've screwed each other over in the past, but let's work together. But I really felt Tyrion should have been more outraged at what Ilaria did. And yeah, I feel like Ilaria, she's a bad guy or girl, you know. She's often not portrayed as the same kind of monster Cersei might be, but I think she's not far off. You know, Oberyn would be pissed off if he could see what she's become. They reveal their plan of attack. Basically, this is one of the ways I feel in which the TV show is... You can kind of tell it's a TV show in that Daenerys has everything she needs to just go and conquer King's Landing, and the excuse they're giving of her not doing it is she doesn't want too many innocents to die, which is fair enough, you can understand that. However, I feel like the plan of attack they do come up with will result in as many people dying. She says at one point she's going to have her army surround King's Landing, not lay siege to it, but starve it out. But in Season 2, when Stannis was coming to lay siege to King's Landing, Bronn, Varys and Tyrion specifically discuss how bad sieges are, and when people start starving, how much chaos comes through and how many innocent people die. So I feel like the writers are kind of trying to figure out a way to have Dany not seem too overpowered. But I've got to say, I feel like, you know, I get it, it's a TV show. They don't have as much time to go into as much depth as the books, but I kind of feel like the alternative plan Dany's come up with will result in as many dead innocents, you know. And as I think Ilaria says, like, here's war. If you're planning to take over, if you're planning to invade, innocent people are going to die, you know. And I think that's something Dany needs to come to terms to. And I hope that when we see her start to attack, maybe innocent people will die, and she'll realise that, you know, the best laid plans, it doesn't matter how hard she tried, people are going to suffer for her conquest. I hope that's something they explore in the show. Dany then says that Illyria will travel with Theon and Yara back to Dorne, where they will then attack, put an army together to attack, and we then see Olenna give some advice to Dany, saying the reason she's outlived so many wise people is because she ignored them. And basically she tells Dany to follow her gut and be a dragon, not a sheep. Then we get a shot of Missandei and Grey Worm finally getting some action. This has been a plot point that's been in the works for a while now. It's clear that Missandei and Grey Worm have the hots for each other, but Grey Worm, being a member of the Unsullied, no longer has his cock or balls anymore, unfortunately. So, and when this subplot romance was first hinted at, I saw some people saying, like, what's the point, where's this going to go? If he hasn't got a knob, you know, how is this going to work? And I disagreed with that, because I think Game of Thrones is all about relationships that are, you know, complicated. You know, look at Cersei and Jaime, they love each other, but they're brother and sister, you know. It's all about strange relationships, and I thought it was interesting, the idea of, you know, how does a man show his love to someone when he hasn't got his junk, you know? And Grey Worm and Missandei, they're very similar in many ways. They've both been slaves, they've both endured brutal upbringings, and yeah, I was kind of rooting for them, to be honest. And I feel like this scene, I thought it was really well done, you know. They clearly got the hots for each other. He's about to go away for a long time. She's like, just puts her cards on the tables, goes, look at this, and then they start getting down to it. And I thought that was a good scene where she was about to take off his robe, and he kind of like stops her, like, I don't want you to see what's down there, it's not pretty. And she was just like, you know what, I don't care. Like, I thought that was really cool and well done. And, you know, obviously Game of Thrones is a very sexy show, but when it comes to Missandei and Grey Worm, it was like, they love each other, you know, they're not too bothered about bagging all the time, you know, even though they want to, obviously. But in the end, Grey Worm, he goes down south, if you catch my drift. And, you know, it looks like they had a good night. So, good for them. Yeah, I kind of been rooting for them. And I'm glad they finally got to lay their cards on the table before they had to leave one another. And, yeah, as I say, there's so much gritty, heavy shit going down in Game of Thrones that sometimes it's nice to just see something work out, even if it's only for a while. Maybe Grey Worm will die during the invasion, who knows. But, you know, it was a nice moment of kind of peace and, you know, a nice moment in Game of Thrones where something fucked up wasn't happening, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I thought that was a well done scene, and I thought both the actors did a really good job. Then we cut to probably, I think, my favourite scene of the episode, definitely really hard to watch, but I thought it was really well done, is when Sam goes to treat Jorah's grayscale. And he's like, look, I don't know if this is going to work, I've never done this before, but I read about this thing we can try. It involves me having to cut away all the grayscale and apply like an ointment. And Jorah's just like, well, I'm dead anyway, so I might as well try. But no one knows Sam's down there, and he's not allowed to be down there, so Jorah's not allowed to scream, so he has to bite down on a piece of leather. And it was just such a, it was so hard to watch, but at the same time, it was quite funny in a way, the way that Sam was, you know, you could tell he was almost more distressed than Jorah, even though Jorah was the one going through the physical pain. Sam was just like, had his head back, trying not to look as he cut away the grayscale and the pus that like came bursting out. I thought the prosthetics and the makeup was really good. Ian Glenn, the guy that is the actor for Ser Jorah, did a great job of like biting down, and you could, you know, he was shaking with pain. And you know, again, Sam, just his reaction and just turning his nose up, like trying not to be sick, you know. He's really come a long way since we first saw him, where he was too afraid to spar with Pip and Gren, and now he's, you know, not enjoying it, but he's managing to perform surgery on someone essentially. And then you had the cracking transition where it zoomed in on the grayscale, all the pus coming out, and then you see a spoon come and take out some of the pus, and then suddenly it transitions and you realise that it's actually a pie you're looking at being opened by someone eating it. And it was so gross, it took me way too long to realise there'd been a transition. For a second it seems like someone's going to eat the pus, but really it's a different scene and it's just a pie, you know. But that was a really good scene, and I thought the acting was great. And yeah, I look forward to, I hope we see Jorah in the next episode to see what Sam did exactly and if it's working. And yeah, I think that was a favourite moment for many people. Hard to watch, not nice, but I just thought really well done. As I said, we then transition to a pie being opened. Arya Stark is in an inn where Hot Pie is working. We haven't seen him for a while, but it was a nice kind of downtime moment where Arya was able to put her guard down a bit. No sign of Ed Sheeran, I guess they departed. He's recording a new album, I suppose. But yeah, it was nice to see Arya being with someone who she just feels no threat from. Hot Pie's an old friend of hers. You know, there's no deceiving nature to him. He was just there, and he was like, "It's you. Like, where have you been for ages?" And I liked at the end how, you know, some time has passed since they've seen each other, and he's like, "I can't believe I thought you were a boy. You're quite good looking now." Like, you know, it's crazy how I was casted by my mother. I was like, when did they last see each other? And, you know, it's crazy how the actors have grown so much over the series. And yeah, as I say, I like these moments of downtime in Game of Thrones where there isn't something crazy happening, where people could just relax for a second. And obviously that's where Arya learns that Jon Snow has taken back Winterfell from the Boltons. And I love that bit where she goes off and she's just about to leave, but then she turns and goes, "Look after yourself, Hot Pie." Like, you know, he's one of her few friends. And I love the way he turned and went, "Don't worry, I'm like you, I'm a survivor." And it's like, I hope you are. I hope that by the last episode of the last series, Hot Pie is still alive. Even if we don't see him, we just don't see him die, at least. And so, yeah, you know, there was part of me that wanted Arya to just stay there and make bread with Hot Pie and work it in and stop killing people, you know what I mean? But yeah, I thought that was a great scene. And obviously it shows Arya learning about Winterfell, and she was going to go down south, kind of on a suicide mission, I guess, to kill Cersei. But now she's headed up north to see Jon and Sansa. Then we're back down in Winterfell, where Jon reveals to his followers that he's had an invitation to meet Daenerys and he's going to take it. And this doesn't go down well with his followers, even though they know they need dragon glass and obsidian to fight the White Walkers. They're just like, look, people have gone to meet rulers before and it hasn't turned out well for them. And Jon's just like, no, I've got to do this. I feel like this was a throwback to Olenna saying to Daenerys, trust your gut, essentially. This is Jon trusting his gut. And even though his followers don't like it, he's going, look, I've got to do this. Again, we see Sansa in public question him, which is kind of, you know, he said in the last episode, you can't do that. I need to look strong. But again, Sansa did question him. And, you know, you can see her point of view. But again, I worry that Littlefinger might use this to try and drive a wedge between Sansa and Jon. However, in the end, Jon seems to convince people that the best thing for him is for him and Davos to go and meet with Daenerys. So hopefully this isn't going to end up with him getting stabbed again. I feel like this is something Jon must constantly be aware of. The last time he went against people's wishes, he ended up getting shanked. And, you know, I think it's brave of him to keep following his gut like this and doing what he thinks is right. We then cut to Jon in the crypts of Winterfell, just kind of gazing upon the statue of Ned Stark, and I guess looking for inspiration, thinking like, am I doing the right thing? What would you do? And I guess hoping he doesn't make Ned Stark's mistakes. And then Littlefinger comes creeping up behind him, and you know, just kind of that classic Littlefinger, you know, whispering in his ear and saying, you know, this and that, and how much he loved Ned Stark and Catelyn. And I loved how Jon was just sort of totally through the bullshit and just turned around and went, you don't belong down here. And I think it's, you know, Littlefinger's really kind of getting backed into a corner this series. Everyone's aware of his bullshit, and just certainly Jon is, and I think Littlefinger needs to be careful. But he wasn't careful. He then went on to say creepy stuff about Sansa, and Jon lost it and throttled him against a wall. And I thought that was a classic throwback to season 1, where Ned throttles Littlefinger against a wall when he invites Ned into his brothel to see Catelyn. And unlike in season 1, Littlefinger didn't have anything glib to say after that. You know, it's looking like he's among the wolves now, and he needs to be very careful what he says and does. And obviously, if Jon is going to meet Daenerys and Tyrion especially, and Varys, will say to Jon, like, look, we know Littlefinger's with you. You cannot trust him. And they could reveal to Jon that Littlefinger was the one that betrayed Ned. And Littlefinger must be aware of this. And if Jon finds that out, he's going to get Ed to fetch him a block. You know what I mean? I mean, is Littlefinger going to flee in the time that Jon leaves Winterfell and comes back? I don't know what his plan is, but if Jon finds out the extent Littlefinger's had in the downfall of the Starks, he's going to be pissed. We then see Arya, presumably heading up north, seems to be getting pretty close based on how much snow was around. She's in a forest, her horse starts to spook, and then a pack of wolves come, presumably to attack her, and they're led by Nymeria, her wolf, who we haven't seen since season 1, after Arya threw rocks at it to get it to run away after it attacked Joffrey when he was threatening the butcher's boy. And last time we saw Nymeria, she was played by a real dog, wolf-like dog. There was no CGI. But now she's fully grown. She's a fully grown dire wolf. She's huge. I thought the effects was really cool, the way they scaled her up against Maisie Williams. You know, she looked massive, and she's about to attack, but then Arya's like, it's me, it's Arya. And she gives her hand, and she lets her smell her, and Nymeria kind of acknowledges her, and Arya's like, join me, you know, we can work together. And Nymeria's like, nope, just goes off back into the woods with her pack. And in the books, there's kind of bits and pieces that indicate that Nymeria has amassed a huge pack of wolves that apparently are feasting on people. And it kind of, we don't know exactly where that's going in the books just yet, but it seems like something similar is happening in the show. Nymeria is leading a pack, and I think it's no coincidence that she turned up to Arya then. I think she's going to appear again. We don't know to what extent. I mean, she didn't seem that fussed to be seeing Arya again because she left, but I would be surprised if we see Nymeria and her pack in the future. The final scene in the episode, arguably the most action-packed, was Euron's attack, his surprise attack on the Greyjoy fleet, captained by Yara and Theon. The scene begins with Yara and Ilaria about to have a bit of sexy time. I doubt I was the only person who cursed Euron's early timing there. Could he not have been 5 minutes later, please? But yeah, there's a surprise attack. Euron comes crashing down upon Yara's ship and like crushes a guy with that weird like bridge thing that falls down. It's got like teeth in it, and he just starts attacking with his fleet and his crew. And this, I think, is where we really see Euron's actor embracing the kind of anarchy of Euron, his crazy side. You can just see he's so enjoying the violence and the gore of the battle. Two of the Sand Snakes, Nymeria and Abara, go to battle Euron. They get some good hits in, but they're no match for him. He's got this huge axe he's swinging, and Abara he like impales and like lifts her up, and you can see on his face like he's got blood covered on his face, and he's just relishing the violence. And then Nymeria uses her whip to try and take him out. Not much point using a whip against someone wearing armour, I think. And he quickly overcomes her and chokes her to death with her own whip. We later see, after the battle's over, Nymeria has been hung from her whip from his ship, and Abara has been like impaled, which is kind of apt to their weapons of choices, if you like. Tyann Sand is down with Illyria protecting her mother. They both get captured. They think they're going to be killed, but then their captor's just like, no, we need you alive. Yara goes to confront Euron. They have it out. She's a great fighter. I've always thought she's a really good character. I liked her. She's badass. But she's no match for Euron. He captures her. Theon, who has been kicking ass, sees Yara's captured, and he looks around at all the gore and destruction going on, and his PTSD from his time with Ramsay begins to kick in again. You know, he's been very frail since then. He's really kind of just followed Yara's lead. And Alfie Allen, the actor, did a really great job, I think, of showing that. You see the kind of tick begin to go in his face, and then he just starts shaking, and he nopes out of there. He jumps overboard. At first, when I saw that, I was like, well, how does Theon escape? It would be easy for Euron to just be like, see Theon bobbing up and down in the water next to his ship and be like, well, fish him out there, like, let's get it. But I think Euron, to him, Theon is just so pathetic. He doesn't even care. He doesn't care enough about him to kill him. Yara, the Sand Snakes, Illyria, he cares about, but I think Theon, he just thinks is broken and his time's done. And I think that could be his undoing. Maybe Theon his kind of redemption arc of, you know, finding his confidence again will be him helping to take down Euron. I hope so. But anyway, it looks like I was correct in my prediction of Euron's gift to Cersei being Ilaria. And not only Ilaria, he's also got one of her daughters, and that looks really bad, because Ilaria, of course, killed Cersei's daughter Myrcella. I can't imagine what Cersei is going to do to Ilaria's daughter before she finally kills Ilaria. It's not going to be good. Will Euron give Yara to Cersei as well? I don't know, maybe. Cersei has no real problem, I think, with Yara, but given how crazy she is and the fact that Yara's father did attack the Lannister fleet decades ago, she could well just kill her out of spite, you know. Yeah, what's Yara going to do? Is she going to die? I'm not sure. I hope not. I like her as a character, and you know, maybe she'll be able to escape from Euron or something. But yeah, I mean, it was a great scene. It was like a real dark Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, Euron's like as I said, a dark timeline Jack Sparrow. Just loves the violence, and you know, I thought it was really bloody and gritty, and you know, it's the kind of violence I like in a weird way, where it doesn't look fun or like something you want to be a part of. It realistically portrays what war and combat like that is, you know, and I feel like that's the mature way to go about it. And yeah, so in a way it's the first blow against Daenerys. The majority of her fleet has been destroyed. Now, I have a little fan theory. I have no idea if this is going to happen, but this is something I thought of. I wonder if when Davos meets Daenerys will have heard that her fleet has been destroyed, and this will prompt Davos to tell her to go and find Salador Saan. You remember him from season 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones, where he joined Stannis' cause to attack Blackwater. We haven't seen him in a long time, and I thought he was a great character. I really liked him, so I would like to see him come back and, you know, devote his fleet to the one Dany lost, you know. I think that'd be really cool. We haven't heard if the actor's returning. I have no evidence for that whatsoever. It's just something I thought, and I would love to see him return. I thought he was a really good character, but we'll see. But overall, I thought it was a really strong episode. You know, it was called Stormborn, and that not only refers to the fact that Daenerys is Daenerys Stormborn, she was born during a storm, but also I think kind of the storm inside the characters, the storm of the battle between Euron and the Greyjoys, and, you know, just this kind of storm that is going over Westeros at the moment. It feels like, you know, it's just beginning. A huge storm is about to break, and people are going to die, and war is going to be waged, and it's going to be intense. I look forward to the next episode, and remember, Valar Morghulis.